You're listening to the Aviation Show,
brought to you by DeBella Training.
For more information, contact us on www.debella.co.za now.
Okay, so we're back at Lanseria Airport, back at the holding point on runway 25, and we've got Mark Mansfield again joining us on the show. Welcome back, Mark.
Hi, Des. How's it going again?
Yeah, we're doing fantastically well. Today we're going to talk about photography, and you've got quite a few interesting things lined up for us.
Photography is, I suppose that's my next passion, next to aviation. So yes, you asked me anything about aviation or photography, it's going to be difficult to shut me up.
Okay, so in one of the other shows we spoke about how you started and that type of stuff. But today specifically, I want to talk about air show photography. You know, what's involved? Is it as easy? Can you just kind of whip out your camera and take pictures at an air show? Or how do you get the best shots?
There's yes, I think the simple answer is yes. Of course it is. If you've got a passion for anything in life, it's always very easy. But if I had to force you to take photographs, you're going to drag your teeth, you're going to pull, you're going to find every excuse in the book not to do it, and you're going to find every reason. The sun's not right, the wind's not right, it's too hot, it's too cold, it's too windy, it's too this, it's too that, it's too dusty. But if you've got a passion for it, it's very easy to do. And I think I started off taking pictures of aeroplanes. I mean, I just walk around. I used to come to Lanseria, for example, before. I don't know if you remember when the Air Force Museum used to be here and when they used to have a swimming pool here. And now look at Lanseria. It's changed drastically. I used to come around and just photograph with the old 110 camera. For those that don't know what a 110 camera is, I think you just try Google as your friend, as everybody tells me.
Has it got a spool? As in a film?
Hell yes, it did. It did, and it was a very awkward thing to develop because you have to break this little canister open to get to the negative, and then you used to take that in negative. It was the emulsion, the light-sensitive emulsion. You used to take that out and roll it into another canister to put into a C41 process to develop it into a negative. So yeah, it was an old, antiquated little system. I mean, I think everybody knows what 35mm film is, but 110, a few people are going to go, what the hell is that?
And did you used to develop that yourself?
Oh, yes, I did. That was what I used to do. I mean, if you recall, I started off wanting to fly. And my late mom said to me, we'll go find a job. And that was working in a photographic lab. And my job was developing film and photographing and printing, doing photo finishing. So, yes, I used to do that plenty in a darkroom. Yeah, there's not much you can tell me about a darkroom, except us photographers enlarge better in the dark.
Sure. And I mean, the generation of today, I mean, my kids, they don't even know what we're talking about. Eh? You know, those spools, it used to be an absolute disaster. You would put a dud spool in and you'd take these fantastic photographs and you'd try and get it developed and it'd all be a total flop. Eh?
Well, you're quite right. And let me very quickly digress from airshow photography. It's all airshow related, but for those that can remember when the Red Arrows visited South Africa a couple of years ago, a few years ago, in fact, I was shooting on a Practica camera. Now, Practica, they used to tease me, used to say, how do you double the value of your camera? They put a roll of film into it. So this particular camera, it was very difficult to load it. Now, if you didn't load the film correctly into the take-up spool, nothing would happen. So anyway, Red Arrows were here and off Mark goes. It was at Waterkloof Air Force Base, and I'm going snap, snap, snap. And I do know that I had 36 exposures, and if I load it correctly, I can squeeze it to about 40. But when I got to 41, something said to me, something's not right here. But anyway, I kind of took the next photograph and I got to 42 and I kept wanting to advance. I thought, here's a problem. So long story short, I rushed back to the lab to go develop this. And of course, my film didn't take up properly. And that was all my Red Arrow shots to this day lost.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I had, in today's generation, I had a problem like that when we went to Russia. We took all of these photographs and I put the Russian SIM card in my phone and it clashed with something. And so when I got back to South Africa, when I put the South African SIM card, the phone crashed. And I lost, not all those photographs, because a lot of them were on Dropbox, fortunately, but I lost a whole lot of photographs that... So you can still do it today.
Oh, no, definitely. Today's even worse, because today you can lose a memory card, you can have a hard drive that gets corrupted, you don't back up your stuff. There's so much more now. You know, in the old days, you had your negative still, provided that you loaded it correctly. But besides that, if you lost the photographs, you still had your negative. You can still go print from your negative. In fact, I still got all my negatives from way back when. Nowadays, I've got hard drive after hard drive after hard drive. But, going back to air shows, yes, I think that's the easiest way to get into aviation photography is at an air show. We're very blessed in this country with perfect weather. We've got an extensive air show season that starts pretty much in February, March, and it goes all the way up until November. And it's pretty much all around the country. So wherever you are at your local airfield, there's 99% chance that there will be an air show happening at the local flying club once a year. And that's a great place to start your photography. So grab your camera and go out early in the morning or late afternoon, depending on what you want to do, and have a great day out with the family and your camera.
So you're talking about early morning, late afternoon. Is that the best lighting, or how does that work?
Yes, well, most definitely it is. I think that's the best time to photograph is early morning, late afternoon, when the sun's either rising or setting. But now the next question you're going to say to me, well, that's great. The air shows don't fly first thing in the morning and last thing at night. You're quite right. The show happens, as always, bright day, 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock, and of course the sun's in your face. But those are challenges you've got to overcome. You've got to know what to do and how to do things. And it's easy. Photography is, I can teach you the practical side of photography. I can teach you the theoretical side, I should say. The theory is easy. The practical is you got to see it first. I can show you when to underexpose, how to underexpose, when to overexpose, what to do, what your settings should be. But, you overcome that. And if you see a great shot, you take the great shot.
Now, if you go to our Tambo, especially on a weekend, you'll see a whole lot of guys kind of hanging over the wall or standing on top of a bucky, taking pictures of aircraft taking. What's all that all about?
Des, now you're asking me to get myself into trouble. What? Well, those are the plane spotters. Yeah, that's another league all on its own, those guys. I mean, they just happen to have cameras. They record that for, I don't quite know why they do it. They are in a different league. And let me quickly go there now. Guys, please, I'm not upsetting any plane spotters out there. I very value what you guys do and the information that you've got. So they will go photograph airlines or any aircraft that will come into our Tambo, and they get great thrills seeing this is Etihad's new color scheme, or this is Singapore's new aircraft, and then they'll know they've got the registration, they've got the build number, they've got the serial numbers, they've got, they're like a walking dictionary. So, I don't know if I should say this, but I wouldn't say they photographers, I'll say more the plane spotters, but the fact that they're recording it and they're photographing it, hell yes, I'm all for that.
Sure. That sounds interesting. So getting back to the air shows quickly, it's obviously a totally different dynamic to filming or to shooting these aircraft that are stationary on the ground. When they're doing an aerial display, that must be a totally different kettle of fish.
Oh, most definitely, it is. And yes, you will need certain equipment. For me to photograph an aircraft on the ground is easy. I could use a standard lens, either a kit lens, an 1855, for example, or a 24-105mm lens for static shots, and it's easy. The biggest thing you've got to overcome on the ground is people walking in front of you, or legs appearing out of the wings, or heads popping up over the tailplane. At an air show, you've got a lot of people, there's a lot of interest, so you've got a lot of people. And one of the reasons why I say go early morning or late afternoons, a lot of the crowds either haven't arrived or have left already, and you've got a pretty much sterile environment to photograph that aircraft. Photographing in the air is a lot more challenging in the sense that you now got to compete against the sun. Some locations you'll have the sun behind you. Other locations, for example, Swartkrop Air Force Base, where they have the annual show, you shoot into the sun over there, which is really difficult to do. The other thing is you do need a minimum 70-300mm lens to get the shots, because sometimes the guys fly fairly high and fairly far away from you. So you need to capture it. With a wide angle, you're going to miss that. You're going to have all this blue sky and a very small little aircraft in there. And you also got to now follow a moving subject. And there are a couple of rules of thumbs when you do that. And if you were, say, for example, using a 70-300mm lens, your shutter speed would be 0.05 of a second, just until you get comfortable. And I think I can hear all the aviation photographers jumping up and down and screaming, and how dare you shoot an aircraft, especially a propeller-driven aircraft, at 0.05 of a second. Because these pro guys like to have a prop disc. In other words, they want to see a full disc. It depicts motion, it just looks more attractive, because if I freeze the propeller, it looks like the aircraft has just been cut and pasted into the sky. But I'm talking now to the person that wants to learn. I'm talking to the person who's not very familiar with the camera. I'd rather have you get the better shot in focus than you have an out of focus photograph and spoiling the entire experience. And also bear in mind, that might be your only air show you've been to in that year. So it's going to be a year later before you get to try it again. So I always say to people, take the photograph, and then once you see you've got it's nice and clear, then slow down your shutter speed for the propeller aircraft. Because what I haven't actually mentioned is that there's one set of settings to photograph propeller-driven aircraft, and then you use another set of settings to photograph jets or fast-moving aircraft. And you want a bit of movement in that. And that's the reason why I'm saying you slow down your shutter speed. But until you're comfortable with your camera, until you know that you can hold it steady, rather shoot at the top end of the shutter speed, a faster shutter speed, as opposed to something slower and messing it up.
Okay, now, air show specifically, this is just my personal experience, but I mean, I've probably seen about 5 crashes at air shows. Do you think it's a dangerous environment to be photographing in?
Opinion-wise, where isn't a dangerous place? It's very difficult because air shows in South Africa, flying is inherently dangerous. We all know that. But then the same argument I can say to you, but isn't driving on the roads? Because there are more taxi accidents, there are more car accidents. Let me not just say taxis, let me just say vehicle accidents. So, yes, unfortunately, there have been accidents and incidents at air shows. It's a safe environment. It's safe as it can be. If I look back at South Africa air show history, and I stand corrected here, but I can't recall, bar one incident, I can't recall of any other air show that somebody has been injured in the crowd because of an aircraft accident or incident that has taken place.
Okay, yeah, but there's quite a few pilot fatalities definitely at air shows. I mean, it must be a high risk because I've seen with my own eyes quite a few crashes there.
Yes, no, it's definitely high risk. You're pushing aircraft beyond the limits. You're pushing people. We've all heard of the syndrome, the ego that kicks in. You want to perform. We want to perform in front of people. But I think, speaking about our airshow pilots, and this is just my opinion, is that they all were aware of this, and I think they've all nowadays they realise it's a safety thing. But most definitely, it is a dangerous environment. You, as a photographer and as an accredited aviation photographer, you do get access to go airside. And straight away, as soon as you go airside at any airport, there's moving aircraft, there's moving parts. Now, we know that aircraft have rights of way, not us public. Now, as photographers or journalists standing out there on the flight line, we've got to be aware of that. And yes, you can get so consumed photographing, looking through the viewfinder, that you don't see this aircraft, or you don't realize you're going to be walking back into a tail rotor of a helicopter. So there's a lot of dangerous. It is high risk. Yes, I can't argue that.
Cool. Well, we're going to be back with Mark Mansfield straight after this.
brandlive.co.za.
Have you ever thought about the power of social media? Social media has the power to make your business grow. Grow! Yeah. Why don't you let us manage your social media? Because our business is to see your business grow. Visit us at www.bstownmedia.co.za.
Get all of today's aviation news on one site. Visit pilotspost.com. Updated twice a week, Pilots Post is a convenient way for aviation professionals and enthusiasts to remain updated with the latest aviation technologies, products, events, and news. Aviation safety, technical information, events reports, aircraft reviews, and aviation personalities are some of our most popular articles. Now in its 5th year with more than 100,000 hits per month and almost 15,000 dedicated readers, Pilots Post is available free on the web. No registration is required. To read Pilots Post, simply go to www.pilotspost.com.
So welcome back to the Aviation Show. We're coming to you from Lanseria Airport this afternoon with Mark Mansfield, very famous. I don't know what to call you. Is it a photographic expert, or what would your best words be for that?
Sure, Des, now you put me on the spot. Besides all the naughty words that people call me, look, I suppose I'm just a professional aviation photographer or a well-known aviation photographer, but it's very embarrassing to try to say that. I mean, that's just me talking about myself. But very privileged, Des. I think I've had a long career and it's been a lot of hard work. People don't realize that they see me now and they see me doing all these amazing things. They follow me on Facebook and they say, "Oh, Mark, you're doing this or you've done that." And wow, that's amazing. We wish we could do that. They don't realize that it's been over 20 years of blood, sweat, and tears. They don't realize of the long hours, the sweaty, the tears, the blood, the working odd, doing all these weird things to get to where I am today. So I'm very fortunate and privileged to do it. I am.
And there was many years ago, there was a man called Herman Potgieter who was tragically killed in an air crash. And he was like one of the kind of real pioneers in South African photography. Did he have any effect in your aviation career at all?
Most definitely. Yes, definitely. You know, Herman Potgieter was somebody I looked up to. I wanted to aspire to be him and have the opportunities to get there. And when I started on this route or out into aviation and obviously with photography, only then I realized what it is to get to that sort of level, because it's not a case of jump into an aircraft or go to an air show and have your photographs printed and published and you become well known or famous. There's a lot of planning involved. And as we were saying the other day when we were talking about air-to-air, there's so many briefings, there's so much safety, there's so many factors that we've got to consider before we actually get into the aircraft, before I even push the button. We've really done a few briefings. We've been talking maybe months in advance about this and how we're going to do it, and that's a big lead up to that. And yes, he was definitely an inspiration in my life, the late Herman Potgieter.
Okay, but last time we spoke air to air, so now we're just going to chat about static photographs, but from kind of different positions, not standing on a tarmac in front of the aircraft. So what have you done that's interesting?
Yes, you're right. And just to elaborate a little bit on that, you know, when I talk to aspiring photographers, no matter what sort of genre they're into, I always say to them, before you take the shot, just change your vantage point or your viewpoint. Just before you do that, lie down, move left, move right, go up, down, you know, just stop, take a few steps back, look at it from a different point of view. And I think I've pulled that into aviation. And yes, air-to-air is on another platform. It's another aircraft, helicopter. Air shows is on the ground at an airfield, pointing either at the ground or up into the air for the displays. But I also then get to do a lot of corporate work, and that takes me to some very interesting places. And the most recent one that I've done was I was asked by Puma Energy South Africa to do their Spring Day shoot. Unfortunately, the Spring Day now, hold on, before I tongue tie here, the Puma Energy are the sponsors of the Puma Energy Flying Lines. We all know the Flying Lines are the Harvard team, flown by Arnie Meneghelli and Scully Levine and company. So Puma Energy are their main sponsor. And Puma Energy wanted to do a Spring Day shoot. And they wanted to do it over the offices, around the offices in Sandton, CBD. And it's not easy to do that, because now you're flying in a built-up area, you're flying over a CBD, and there's a lot of laws and regulations that prohibit or restrict such flying or such displays. So there was no opportunity for me to go do an air-to-air shoot with them through Sandton CBD. And also, you didn't want to have 4 aircraft in a beautiful formation. He has this 5th little aircraft flying around, hanging around. So you didn't want to do that. So the only other option was for me to find another viewpoint or advantage point. In this case, it was on top of the Michelangelo in their, I forget the name of the suite, I think it was the Coppola suite. And I got to go into this amazing penthouse suite, stand on this 360-degree panoramic viewed balcony, and photograph the flying lines as they went past the Puma Energy offices.
Wow. Now, who organizes all of that?
Well, I get a phone call, I suppose, like all things start off, or an email saying, "Mark, would you mind doing this?" Or I'm at a meeting with a client and say, "Well, Mark, we've got this coming out. Can you come do this photo shoot for us?" And I'll go, "Yes." Then they kind of all look at me and say, "Well, okay, you run with it." And I end up putting everything into place. You know, I say that, a little bit of legwork on my side to find out what we're going to do, where they're going to do it, how they're going to do it, what time they're going to do it, and all those logistical things. It's for me to make sure I get the shot for the client. And it's also then, what I find the fun bit, is I actually tell my client what I want them to give me. So in other words, I say, fine, I can do that, but I need to be on that building. Please get the permission from that landowner. And they have to go run around and do all those sort of funny things. So it's a kind of joint effort between myself and the client to say, this is what we want, this is what we need. How am I going to do that? And we'll sit and have a meeting and say, well, you want that. In order for me to give you that particular photograph, I need to be here doing that. And that's how we put it together. So A lot was arranged by Puma Energy. In this particular case, they got permission for me to go up to the Michelangelo. I had spoken to Scully of the team. I had spoken to the client, Puma Energy. We all knew what was happening. I was in full radio contact with the team as they did it. And successful photo shoot for Spring Day.
So let's just elaborate quickly on that. How do you put that whole thing together so that everybody knows what everybody's doing? How long does that whole process take? And
This particular process was a 2-week process. We discussed this photo shoot 2 weeks in advance. So the first step was the initial meeting where the client said to me, this is what they want to do. I then contacted the flying lines, and I spoke to them and said, this is what I've been asked to do and what we can do and what they're going to be doing. So the discussions were their flight path. In other words, how would they approach Sandton CBD, from which direction, what heights, how long they would they be in the area for, and what formation, and what in other words, how would they be flying in formation? Line astern, nose to tail, how were they going to do this? So I got a lot of logistical information from them. They knew where I was going to be positioned, and we then went back to the client and said, okay, all happy. We then got the Central Airspace Management Unit, or CAMU, reference number. That was done by the Flying Lines team. That had nothing to do with me. But all the permissions were in the right place. Everybody was notified of the event at a specific time. I then took the hike up to the top of the Michelangelo. And the team out of Rand Airport were airborne, came and did their display. And yeah, off I went, snap, snap.
And the result is a spectacular photograph. Where can we have a look at that?
That also, those particular photographs, I haven't published myself because it belongs to the client, but there will be pictures in World Air News magazine, the October issue. There will be a caption story with that particular photograph and story around to what happened on Spring Day.
Fantastic. We're going to be back with a quick story straight after this.
You're listening to brandlive.co.za. DeBella Training and Management provides South African civil aviation approved training to aircraft maintenance engineers. From engine to airframe, DeBella offers international quality courses on a wide range of aircraft. Many of our clients are from Africa and the Far East, enjoying DeBella's tranquil on-site accommodation minutes away from the airport, and also provide courses in your country depending on your training needs. DeBella's pioneering range of practical hands-on training videos augment the DeBella theoretical modules, modernizing the aviation training industry. Visit www.debella.co.za now. DeBella, you name it, we train it. Real aviation stories with DeBella.
Submit your real life story to www.debella.co.za.
And you could be featured on the Aviation Show live on brandlive.co.za or in our upcoming book.
Okay, welcome back, Mark. You're going to tell us a quick story at one of the air shows.
Yeah. Now, we all know as photographers, we've got this little syndrome, mine is bigger than yours. And, you get to an air show, every whips out
your camera, I take it.
Well, of course, Lens, my Canon is always bigger than everybody else's. But anyway, yes, your camera equipment. So, particular AAD, a few years back, I was on the media stand. And, of course, I got all these top-end media houses with all their camera equipment and their big lenses and all their fancy kit. And here I pull out my Yashica D. Now, what is a Yashica D? Everybody, we're going to ask me now. Yashica D is a twin lens reflex camera. It looks like it's come out of the 1920s. It uses a roll film, in those days called medium format, or 120. And the weird thing about this is, if I could explain it to you, it's like a box. It's almost like a milk carton, a 1 liter milk carton box with 2 lenses on it, and you used to look through the top of it. And if I moved left, the picture moved right. And it was one of these very weird and wonderful cameras to photograph on. So I stood on this media tower, and everybody's expecting me to whip out these amazing lenses. And I pull out this Yashica D camera, and I felt all these photographers all just cringe and withdraw, and all took a gasp of breath and 3 steps back as I stood taking pictures of the Roy Falk formation at AAD Waterkloof many years ago.
But what is the size of this thing? I mean, how big is it?
Oh, no, it's not too big. How do I explain this on radio? You can hold it within two hands. It's about 15 centimeters in height, but it's a square camera, and it's pure manual. There's no light meter to it. There's nothing in it. There's nothing automatic. Everything has to be done. You have to focus manually. You have to advance the form manually. And here are all these pro guys sitting with these big lenses, and here I come along with this thing, standing there. And of course, I'm going a little bit left, a little bit right, and I'm shuffling along this media platform, and all these guys with their tripods have to move out of my way. And I thought, to hell with that. Off I went. I was going to have a little bit of fun, and I did. I got some amazing photographs of that using that particular film camera, because I still enjoy shooting film. I suppose you can compare me to the vinyl junkies. We all listen to online music nowadays. We all listen to streaming. We've got iTunes coming out of our ears, no pun intended. But you do get those vinyls, those people who still like listening to a record. Same as me. I still like shooting on film every now and again.
It's crazy how the technology comes back. Even songs. I mean, my daughter was listening to a song yesterday, and I said to her, "Do you know that comes from Dirty Dancing?" And she says, "No, it doesn't." I said, "Yes, it does."
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I'm with you on that. I hear that. There's very few things that are new. It's always these reinventions of things that keeps coming back. And
Yeah, often the copyright expires after 20 years, and that's why it comes back 20, 25 years later, because they can use that.
Correct. Well, look, I talk copyright. That's another subject all on its own. Of course, as photographers and digital photography, copyright, it's difficult. I think we can leave that for a discussion or another topic.
For a different show. But it's been fantastic having you on the show again. Thanks so much for joining us. Until the same time, Tuesday, 3 o'clock next week, from us to you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Des. Bye-bye.
You have been listening to The Aviation Show on brandlive.co.za, proudly brought to you by Debella Training.
Visit www.debella.co.za now.